Comments, items that are not on the agenda, should there be any public comments from the public? Okay, none so. Go on, next we'll go to the National Grid license for access to solar array.
So very quickly, the solar array, by the way, is, and we have a principal right here. The solar array is done. It just now needs to be tied in. National Grid is requiring us to grant them this 4 poles. 3 poles that lead in from the street to the site, and that needs that connects the array into the grid. We start saving money. The grid wants a license leading to an easement, and that can only be done by town meeting. So they're content with a license, providing we go to town meeting with an easement in the fall, and we'll go from there. So in front of you tonight is authorization of a license to allow it's Massachusetts Electric and Verizon, both their poles, to connect into this, to have a license on these 3 poles sites on the Public Works yard, which they're already there, by the way. They're not new poles, and then we can move forward.
Do we own those poles now?
No, they've been there for years.
Yeah, so they're owned by National Grid.
Yeah.
So this is just a license that we need to sign off on.
The license gives them the rights that they've never had on this, and they want, because it's going to be electric power flowing through them in a different way than there was before.
Outbound as opposed to inbound.
There's a third party
Yes.
involved, which typically isn't necessarily required, but they're asking for a little further legal access, basically.
And this is step 1. The second step would be to go to town meeting in the fall, but we have time between now and then to hammer out the details of what an easement might look like.
So they don't have an easement now on these pre-existing poles.
Yeah, no, the poles have been there because they provided service to Public Works yard. They're saying now because there's another party involved, Co-Solar, right? Co-Solar.
Which is a legal entity?
Yes, and because it's not us, it's a third party shipping the electricity out, they want an easement. But there's going to be a little bit of different equipment, there'll be different lines on
Yeah.
the poles. But,
It allows us to.
Got it. So, okay.
that's what it is. So, and the array's there. If anyone hasn't been up there, we're hoping to have a nice ribbon cutting at some point soon. So long delayed project, very successfully completed.
So the license language has been drafted?
The council we've been up and down in each way from Sunday with council on this. So the language you have in front of you is good. And then we're going to work on the easement language before town meeting.
So I ask for a motion to approve the license for easements and access for National Grid.
And Verizon.
And Verizon.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Thanks, Chris. Go ahead.
So could you please add to the meeting minutes that the board agrees to place this item, the N-Grid easement, in the warrant article for the fall annual
Okay,
town meeting?
yeah, so we'll also ask a motion that we place this in the special town meeting warrant in the fall for town vote. Is there a second?
So moved.
Okay, sorry,
Yep.
I don't mean to be persnickety. Would you just clarify that we are specifically move that we support a special town meeting article, fall town meeting 2017, granting an easement to National Grid and Verizon for the purposes stated within the license.
Okay, is there a second?
So, second.
All in favor?
Well, before we say that, so therefore, to put a fine point on what Steve's saying, this isn't going to. I anticipate we're going to do this, but I think what Steve's getting at, we'll lock ourselves into it when we've essentially heard about this right now, right? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, I was just trying to clarify, first of all, the language of the motion itself, that we're talking about an easement coming before fall town meeting, sponsored by the selectmen as an article. That was
Yeah, I say that what we're voting on is that we're supportive of it, though. I mean, I'm just saying I think our options ought to be, because we need to make sure we know what we're doing here, and let's not put an article on the warrant. It's not even open.
no,
Yeah,
there's
it's
no warrant open yet.
So it's just
The support of it.
an idea of support, which is really implicit in what we just did anyway. So
It's implicit, but
But,
it's specific to the
Well,
request
to be.
But we're basically agreeing to sponsor a warrant article. The selectmen are agreeing to sponsor a warrant article in the special town meeting. That's really what we're doing tonight.
Do that motion.
that would be
Yeah.
supportive of what we just agreed upon.
Yes,
That's
okay.
fine.
Any further comment? All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we,
Sorry to keep you
When are you
waiting.
gonna hook up my house?
yeah, when's gonna, so when will it hook up?
Just kidding.
When will it hook up to the grid?
Ngrid would not schedule their poll work until they got this taken care of.
Okay.
So they're probably several weeks out.
Okay, good.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What you call that next item? What you call it?
The next item is the Housing Authority appointment. Selectmen vote to affirm.
So this is a weird little situation. The state is changing the way that how local housing authorities appoint their or elect their tenant representative. So they gave direction to us and a lot of other communities not to hold a vote for anyone who's up for election this past cycle. So the clerk pulled the housing authority ballot question off the ballot. And there were two members, Patrick McCarthy and Marilyn LeBlanc. Unfortunately, the state still has not come up with regulations to do those appointments. So the boards would be short members, and they specifically noted, and I included a memo in an email to you earlier today, that so they were encouraging boards of selectmen to affirm the continued appointment of their existing members until such time as the regulations are in place. I've never seen this done before, but this is what they're asking us to do. So, and the two members are Patrick McCarthy and Marilyn LeBlanc, and I'm asking that the board affirm their continued service until such time as they have been, as their replacements are selected.
And underlying this is that these positions will be appointed by the Board of Selectmen going forward?
No, there'll be a tenant appointment process which hasn't been created.
Oh, yeah, so then the town will go through that, but it won't involve a town vote, I take it. Is that the idea?
I would gather.
Is that why they're doing
some kind of
this?
tenant election or something, but they haven't come up with the
They just want to go up with the new process?
Yeah, they have come up with a method to do it as of yet.
And it was supposed to be done 6 months ago, but it hasn't happened yet. So. But they told everybody not to hold the election, so people are in this quasi position, and they still holdovers. You know, this
This
is
is called status quo.
yes, basically. So you're affirming that these.
This is a
people can do
standstill
that.
action.
But yes,
That doesn't-
status quo action.
So I would ask for a motion, as the state recommends, to affirm the two members, Patrick McCarthy and Marilyn LeBlanc, as service to the Housing Authority until such time as the replacements are selected.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just clarifying that the McCarthy's no relation to me.
Okay. So noted.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Thanks. Next one up is the licenses, events, and permits. The 3 Beach Minimum. Is there someone from 3 Beach Minimum?
Yep.
Please come up, identify yourself, and give us a little bit of background of what's planned.
Yeah, sure. Good evening.
Hi, welcome.
Hi.
Is this your third year?
Seems like it was yesterday.
Fourth.
Yeah,
Seems like it was yesterday we were talking to you.
Right.
I know.
We need a fall event.
Yeah.
That's right. So I'm John Donlin, 48 Beach Plum Lane in Situate, Mass. And thanks again for allowing me to review the application with you. So this is our 4th year of doing the 3 Beach Minimum Half Marathon. Hopefully our 4th year. Last year went great again. We have kept the numbers the same as the previous year, 300 runners. No incidents reported, so nobody got hurt, no injuries, no disturbances around town that we had heard of. This year, the event is largely the same, so we're not asking for more runners. We're going to keep it at 300. It's a pretty manageable number. And I've met with Chief Sylvia and with Sergeant Trainer to work out the logistics. Because of the construction at Cunningham Bridge, we have to change the route. So I think you have an alternative route that's in there. And so the event, it starts and finishes in Nantasket Beach. It's an out and back course. And so runners in previous years would come out along Jerusalem Road, and where the split was at Jerusalem and Atlantic, they would continue straight on Atlantic. Now we're going to have them turn right on Jerusalem, come all the way down to Main Street. They'll have a quarter mile on Main Street, and then they'll take the left on Highland over here, and then onto Beach. And that's sort of the workaround. That's really the big change. We also, last year we had moved the date to mid-October. I was swimming the English Channel, and I'm not doing that
And you
this
came
year.
back.
I came back in one piece, yep. So we're back to our usual. I did get across, yeah.
Good for you.
Good for you.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a hell of a thing. So now we're back to our usual slot of the last Saturday in September. which I think is a clear date. And I think that's about it. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the race.
Any questions from the board?
Okay, this is for fundraising essentially is what you do. So most all of your money from this goes to
That's right.
and it goes to these just for the public's benefit: Cohasset Educational Foundation, Wellspring Multi-Service Center, Situate Education Foundation, and the American Liver Foundation. And
That's right.
you're going to make roughly $4,000 on this. You anticipate, and that goes to these organizations.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yep. That's right. Yeah, we've been able to do that the last couple of years. So.
And you've met that good.
Yeah, it's been good. I try to put on sort of a white glove event that people really enjoy and give them a lot of benefits. So that adds to the cost a little bit, but the net proceeds we give back as much as we can. So it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah. Well, the town appreciates that as well as Situate and the American Liver Foundation, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ask for a motion to approve the event permit application for the 3 Beach Minimum
So moved.
on September 30th.
Yeah,
Second.
just add to the
Second.
motion, September 30th, 2017.
Is there a discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Have at it.
Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck with it.
Thank you very much. Good luck with it.
Thank you.
Good to see you again.
Can we just, at some point in the future, revisit the event application form, just because it's been a couple years now, and just put it on an agenda to discuss. One of the things I want to discuss is kind of the practicality and some way of notifying butters that is standard for every event that we approve. Because, even though it gets publicized, depending
You're waiting,
on...
you'll see the runners.
Yeah, and I don't know that it's practical to send a postcard to every single person who's on the road. I know we tried to do that with the Rotary Road Race, just dropping flyers off, and it's kind of impractical to do that, but I think it's something we should at least discuss and address, how best to get the word out to people to let them know that, guess what, there's going to be a change. And I think with your event, at that point, people are going to be pretty dispersed and running single file, so it's less impactful than, when you get hundreds, almost 1,000 runners.
Right.
We have used the reverse or the code red system to let people know that something's coming. We did that with the road race this year, just as an extra reminder. So we could do that for these events, and you could just bubble it to the immediate adjacent roads.
Yeah.
And that's something I think we should talk about, absolutely. Yep.
Just
Thanks.
one quick comment on that. I would say I think that's a great idea. I'd love to be able to let people know more. I was actually putting up some arrow signs one year, letting people know,
Right.
directing runners.
Right.
And a woman came out from her house and said, "Oh, there's a half marathon going on. I wish I had known. I would have come out and cheered the runners on."
Right.
So there's a positive aspect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we
Yep.
do have a different
I gotta
event
let
calendar
cowbells.
too.
Yeah.
The town website has a much more robust event calendar.
Yes,
So we can put
it's
these on it
great.
now
Yep.
so everybody can see those things.
Yep. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you. Good luck. Thank you. Next up is the Cohasset Kids Triathlon waiver of fee.
Hello, board.
Hi, Bill.
Good
How are
evening, good
you?
evening. Bill Burnett, 28 Mohawk Way. Sorry to take a couple minutes of your time on this topic, but I'm hopeful to get some leniency on the permit fee for the kids triathlon, which is currently $400 for an event. And when I looked at the financials, I mean, the kids triathlon is just a labor of love, frankly. So $400 is a lot. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot for an event like this. So I'm proposing $100 goes as a permit fee for some event like this. So I was told to come in front of you all to get that approved.
You mean $100 instead of
I'd love to
$400?
pay $100 for the kids triathlon. I think it's a reason based
Instead
on
of the
what
$400.
what the event brings in income wise. I think that's something I can handle. More than that just seems like a lot.
Any discussion from the board? I know.
There was a question that had arisen when this had come up, was it 2 meetings ago?
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And the question was, we didn't understand the finances because the entry fee was, the gross revenue calculation was high, and we were wondering why the waiver. And the representative at the time wasn't sure, so that's the reason that.
For me,
Yeah.
or for
Yeah.
That's why we wanted you to
It's
come
the
back
gro-
in.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's
Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
So I appreciate your request and identifying what you think is a reasonable amount. But can you walk us through the financial calculations on your end? The basis for the fee from our standpoint is that we engage, as you know, because you're part and parcel of the event application process. The engagement that the town makes is one of pre-planning by our public safety staff and the like, and then then there's the coordination that goes with the staffing itself. We recognize that you pick up, or the sponsor will pick up, the cost of detail officers and the like. Right. But we were just trying to understand, well, why is it a burden? So for the so the board understands. Can you go?
Well,
through
the truth be told, I've never been asked to pay this amount for the kids' race. So I've had it for 4 years. So it's the first time that the town came to me and said you have to pay $400 for a permit fee. That hit me kind of like I wasn't even aware of that. I wasn't aware of that. I have never had to pay that before. Maybe the kids' triathlon got tied in with the adult triathlon. Maybe that was an administrative situation. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is the kids' race is the registration fee is $25 a person. There's maybe 200 kids, and then when you factor in the money I give to then the CEF and the swim center, and then pay for the details, it doesn't add up. I just wouldn't do the event anymore. And even if it's just for a couple $100, it's just not.
Yeah, just a couple things. One is that I think it was probably 2 summers ago we instituted fees on events, and it was there was a group of us that worked on it, and it wasn't like we just decided to assign this particular event a fee. It was based on participants. It was based on the time that there could be potential road closures, that kind of thing. It was modeled after about 3 other communities, and we tried to bring it down as low as we could. So
not a problem.
it wasn't anything that was directed at any event other than we needed to assign some kind of a permit fee. At the time, we also set a very modest application fee of like $25 that we said we would be willing to waive, but that we were going to be pretty strict about the fee for these events, just because of the toll they took on the road. Having said that, I absolutely support personally, waiving $300 of this fee and bringing it down. It is an event I volunteer for every year. It is very Cohasset. It's very, I think, low impact because it's really only using one street. I know probably the people at Sawyer Street may disagree, but it is all Cohasset, and I'm going to help you out here and throw you a bone. I mean, there is a lot of embedded costs. I mean, you're buying chips and bibs and T-shirts and setting up quite a special event for a lot of kids. And like I said, it's primarily Cohasset families, and it is truly awesome. It's fun to watch. So.
So I mean, the board, I agree. $400 is reasonable, but I'm used to in the market. That makes sense. But for an event that size, the kids' race we're referring to, it just seems like a lot. Yeah, agreed.
Any other discussion?
This goes through I think we discussed this before. Did you do the notifications of people on Sawyer and
no.
Can you make sure that they
I will
do?
make sure, yeah.
Because they can't take that left that day.
I will make
and
sure,
that
yes.
disrupts,
Yes.
about 70 houses there.
Yes.
If you would,
Yes.
I think you did last year, didn't you?
We
Or
did,
you
yes.
Just make sure.
Got the flyer and everything.
Yeah.
I think there was a flyer in the mailbox.
Yes,
But it wouldn't be. It sounds like a small thing, but it can throw people off
Yeah.
for that day, and that's something we want to be sensitive to for the community.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll tell my neighbors, so you don't have to worry.
Okay.
No, I want mine in the mailbox because that
Don't
way.
count on him.
Yeah.
So is there a motion to lower the fee to $100?
I move that we lower the fee for the Cohasset Kids Triathlon to $100.
As a one-time event.
Just one.
One time right
Any
now.
further discussion?
Just a question. If in planning for the future, you were to look at this and the board, because the future board may look different,
Yeah.
right? Would you consider giving a little bump to your entry fee?
I would. Recovery, I would. The answer is yes, absolutely.
Thank you. That's the end of my discussion.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Good
Thank
to
you.
see you, Bill.
Good
Thank
evening.
you.
Thank you.
Bill.
Thank you.
Passes 5-0. And next up is Open Space and Recreation Committee update.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi. This going to be projected?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Just mine.
We have a show.
I hope so.
Good evening, I'm Peter Pescatori, Cohasset Open Space and Recreation Committee.
I'm Lacey Good. I'm Katie Holden.
Dick Carroll.
All of the open space and recreation.
Yes, these are 4 members of the Open Space Committee. And we're here tonight to just give you an update of the purpose of the committee, where we are, and what we need from the committee, what we need from the community to get the successful plan completed. With that, I'll turn it over to Lisa.
Okay. So for those of you who don't know what the open space and recreation plan is, that's our most important task, certainly at the moment. Cohasset, I believe, has had one since 2002. Our current plan was developed in 2009, ran from 2010, and I think it expires tomorrow. So we've been in the process of updating. Basically what it is a framework to protect open space for the people of the town, for the neighborhood parks, for outdoor recreation, and also for wildlife and critical habitat for native plants. Massachusetts strongly encourages open space plans as tools for planning. They want people to be active stewards of the land, and they see open space plans as a sort of hedge against preventing overdevelopment. Okay. So our most important task right now is doing this open space plan. It's basically going to serve as a 7-year roadmap for the town. It's very comprehensive. Basically, it helps to balance growth with conservation of the natural environment. It helps to ensure that our recreational resources are keeping pace with our population as it changes and grows. Importantly, it enables us to compete for grant money. And in the past, some of the grants that we've gotten as a result of having an open space plan helped us to purchase the Barnes Wildlife Sanctuary, to replace the Border Street Bridge, to build rain gardens, etc. So we'd like to think that we'll be able to open up some new avenues for more money for projects. And very importantly, it helps us to develop new goals, objectives, and action items based on our current conditions. That's something we all want to, we're all digging very deeply into the kinds of things that we'd like to see. Sure.
So this is the current 6 members of the committee. We're missing 1 from the Recreation Committee. After the election, there's some new members at Recreation, and once they have their next meeting, they will appoint a person to join the committee. So we'll have 7 people on the committee. We also would invite all of any of the selectmen to come to the meetings. They're very informative. We're discussing a lot of topics that are of interest to the town and certainly the board. So we invite you to join us if you'd like.
Just a question. Could you identify which of these are members selected among other town boards, and which are citizen-at-large positions?
Yes, Brian Frazier is with the planning board. Lisa is with the Cohasset Citizens.
Well,
Committee.
but that's not a town
She's a
board.
citizen.
Exactly.
Yeah, she's a citizen at large.
This is my only town board.
Yep.
Katie is with the Conservation Trust, so she's not in a town board.
Okay.
Dick Carroll is with the CPC. Myself, I'm a free agent. And Patrice Vogelman is with the Conservation Committee.
And then there's a position for
And there's a recreation position. So that's the makeup. It's fewer members than were involved in doing the 2009 plan, because that was pretty much a complete rewrite. This is an update, and that's an important point. We're not looking to, we're just bringing it up to date, looking at what we're waiting. We're looking to update the goals and the objectives, and stay as an operating committee for the full 7 years. The committee that was formed to do the plan last time disappeared after a few months after the plan was approved. So we're intent on being the advocates for open space, recreation, different aspects of that for the full term.
Is this
God willing.
in our bylaw? There's a state statute that governs this. Is that correct? That you're operating under? And
No, it's they encourage you to have a plan.
it's not a statute. They have a policy.
Well, but they do have a bit of a stick, because if you don't have a plan,
Right.
certain grant avenues are not available to you, and use of CPC funds could be restricted.
Okay.
So it's a yin and yang kind of thing.
Yeah, I understand.
They
that.
encourage you, but if you don't play, you lose out on some
It's
opportunities.
a funny, yeah. And we have a bylaw.
No, it is a selectman-appointed committee.
Yeah.
So we appointed the members, and
It's not, it's not in the
we have a
bylaws.
charge and so forth too that we did that.
Yeah.
Just refresh me.
And that is the charge, is to develop the plan, get it approved, and then be active as the advocates for open space and
Is
recreation.
there a time frame that you operate where you do the update, and then you would look then that you would have to do a complete new one? Are we under that? Is it
Well,
like 5
7
years you're doing an
years.
update, 10 years you're going to do one?
Every 7 years.
Okay,
And the committee was formed in late March.
right.
So although we do have the same consulting group that did the prior plan, Beals and Thomas, and they were working, funded by the town from January, I believe. So they've been working to gather the data sets, the GIS information, the assessors information, the state information. They're getting all the data,
Yeah. When would you look to do
Databases.
this? Look at this again. I'm
If
sorry.
you want to go to the
7
next
years
slide,
from now.
maybe.
yeah.
So as Peter mentioned, so Beal and Thomas has been working, they're updating at the same time as we as a committee are working to update, basically reaching out to various town boards and authorities to sort of update critical information that has been sort of earmarked in the existing plan to make sure that everything is up to date and really reflects the current state of the town. At the same time, we're also trying to solicit the town's input on various issues related to open space and recreation. And we've reached out to lots of different town groups. The survey is currently available on our town website, and we've advertised that fact to various groups throughout town, as well as it will be in the Mariner this coming week. And hard copies are available at various spots around town as well.
Yeah, why don't we just tell them the spots? The town clerk's office has hard copies. The library, the senior center, and the rec commission office has hard copies for anybody who would rather just fill it out and get it back.
Plus, for those that are watching, I mean, I've taken it online. It's very, it's easy and good.
Quick.
Doesn't take long to do the
Anonymous.
survey. The questions are very
Yeah.
clear, and so I'll give a little push. To
Yeah,
that.
and one of our major points that we want to make tonight is to make an appeal to the citizens of the town to take a little time to take the survey, because the content, the feedback we get from the survey will determine the direction of the goals and objectives that we set in the plan, and then work toward for the next 7 years.
And it's one of the few occasions that participants can do something, make an input, and not have a commitment as a result.
Really, that's win-win.
We're pretty excellent at that.
We also will be holding a town meeting, essentially, a community outreach event, which will be kind of an information fair where we solicit inputs from people directly. So we haven't set the date for that, but we will as soon as the survey, we're a week into the survey now, we'll probably let it run another 10 days or so. And then once we get the results back, we'll have an outline for this community outreach project, which will be one meeting, probably, we haven't picked the venue yet, but, reasonably sized room that we can have some refreshments and bring people in. We'll have tables set up and stations to talk about different aspects of open space and recreation. We're trying to look to see if there are any people in the town feel that we have any gaps in recreation for different segments of the population, and open space, and the usage of open space, accessibility for the open space, things like that. So we're very, very interested in that.
And different neighborhoods too. That's one of the things we're interested in. If there are underserved neighborhoods or the places in town where people don't feel like they have access. So once the open space and recreation plan is adopted by the town, finished and adopted by the town, it then gets submitted to the Massachusetts Division of Conservation Services. Once they give their approval, that's when we're eligible for different grant monies to sort of undertake maybe some of our goals.
I was just wondering, because we've got the master plan process going too, and that has a section on it, a chapter on open space, so...
They'll actually adopt...
You think that probably they'll essentially adopt what
Traditionally, they just adopt the open space plan. They just bolt it onto their plan.
So it would seem that when as you get closer, you present that to the master plan to give their...
We'll be presenting to
so they know about it.
Planning, Conservation, Board of Selectmen.
The final document.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a question about the adoption by the town. Is that town meeting or is that?
No, it's just the Board of Selectmen.
It's you guys.
So when
Which means you'll have to read it.
We can do that. We read a lot.
We could let's form a committee for that if we may.
So you got a consultant in to look at population trends and parcel usage and all that.
Yep.
Are you coordinating that with the master plan and with the long range planning group? Because
We will.
okay, because to my knowledge, I mean there are 5 or
this
6
is an
different sets
independent-
of numbers out there.
This is an independent project
Okay.
from the master plan. And some of the things that'll be done in this plan will differ from what the master plan is looking at.
But the parcel number, I mean the
The parcel
population
numbers, we just came out of a meeting where we talked specifically about getting Katie Dugan and Tana to share their work with us so that we can incorporate
Good.
it in our... So yes, we're going to...
Because I think the last open space plan showed population decreases. Right?
Yeah, it was...
Which
well,
you probably don't want to do this time.
I've talked to the consultant about that, and what they use is the state information,
Yeah,
and the state's information
was
was what it is.
Yeah.
And we'll see if we can change that for this thing.
Okay.
Yeah, because just to put a fine point on what Jack is saying, I think what we'd be concerned about, at least I'd be concerned about, is if we had 2 or 3 sets of basic data, which the long range planning committee is using, and the master plan is using, the open space is using. I'm just concerned that would create some chaos in town, so to speak. And
We're coordinating with...
so that hopefully we'll have one basic set of data, right? Because long range planning's already done a lot of work on that, and they're using those numbers.
But they only meet once a month, and we have to be done by probably August.
By law or whatever, or staff.
No, you're uncovered for grants
Yeah,
as
good.
of tomorrow. And so we have an obligation to get this plan put together. And again, it's an update and not a complete rewrite.
Did they do population and parcel studies in the
They
last?
do
time?
population.
And are you using the consultant to do this? Is that what?
We are.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I was just going to
Sorry.
suggest if you're going to have a presentation on the population data that was put together by the long range planning group, I'm wondering if we might consider coordinating it. 'cause
No, I don't think we are.
Oh, I thought you just said that with Katie and.
We're using the assessor data that they worked up on parcels
Okay.
and open space and et cetera.
'Cause-
I don't know that they have anything in the population area. The town clerk would be the only person I'd want to hear about population numbers from.
So
There's-
my only suggestion was there was a committee that worked on it. They have yet to present to the Board of Selectmen, so I don't know that information. I know it's out there because there was an article in the Mariner about it. And I thought if it's a selectman charged committee, so if they're gonna be presenting us that population and parcel data, it would be a good opportunity for your committee to hear it as well, since we haven't heard it and hasn't been.
If I may add some clarification to that, because I worked with Katie on the population piece. The focus of the population data from the long-range planning group's perspective was to try and hone in on what the growth was for the school-age population. Interestingly enough, we have very little data on our population as a whole, and the town clerk captures it in snapshots. We've never asked the town clerk to give us information that we can use for trend. Katie has put that together. There are assumptions within it. However, it's the best continuity of data that we have been able to, or actually, credit where it's due, anyone's been able to put together, and Katie cobbled it together. It's worthwhile looking at and using it as a decision-making tool, but they are not concrete, and everybody in creation of that study recognizes it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we have to consider as we go through our process is that this has to pass the muster of the state folks, and if they require the state data, then we'll be leaning toward adhering to what they're used to seeing.
You'll show some population growth, but it won't be magnificent.
Well, I think one point that's important to sort of address all of this is that one of our big tasks now is going through and finding out who has the information that we need. So we are, our goal is to reach out to the appropriate people and get all that information that we can. And the Beals and Thomas piece is the stuff that's very much published.
It's the
Assessor,
it's the
yeah.
baseline information.
Exactly.
The GIS, the assessors information, all that kind of stuff.
Right. So we are hopeful that we can have an updated plan mid to late summer. Probably I'm thinking late summer, but mid to late if we're optimistic.
Yeah, again, we don't want the gap from the lapsing of the current plan to go
prevent
too
you
far,
from getting
because, grant opportunities may come up, although we don't, we've talked to town manager about this, and he's not too concerned about, missing anything that he can see in the, coming up, but you never know.
Do you see your committee as going forward as to being the one that actually spearheads getting grants and pursuing them and so forth? Because it seems to me this is another argument for the town planners.
Yeah.
This is just another, I'm just saying to the board in general, this is another major activity, major opportunity that argues for a full-time town planner that can produce this.
Yeah, I would say
because you're not going to want to, volunteer citizens doing it. It's pretty
I would say in our goals and objectives, if a grant is available to satisfy a goal or objective that we have in the plan, then we would identify it, and either we would pursue it or we hand it off to your planner or whatever.
Right.
We'll be working hand in glove with the. As I said, we had our meeting started at 6:30, and the things we were doing were identifying who we need to talk to about coordinating information for this section and this section and this section. And the master plan committee, we honed in on that, and we'll be talking to the water commission, and we'll be talking to Jack Buckley and the sewer people and the conservation people. We've got lists of questions that we need answered, because again, this is an update. What's happened, what have we done in the prior 7 years? What were the goals and objectives in the plan previously? What has been accomplished, that either satisfied those or didn't satisfy them, and then kind of generates the objectives and goals going forward. So it's a fairly complicated process at the moment, but we're starting to get in front of the curve by identifying the resources we need, and we're working hard at. We're going to need a lot of help from the committees in town to get this done effectively, and people like Brian, Brian Joyce, and all of that.
So I have a question. You mentioned the Barnes Bird Sanctuary. I thought that was a trust owning that now? Is the plan to
I think
acquire
that
it?
they're probably different entities, but according to our own open space plan, it was a grant that enabled the town probably partially to purchase the
Well,
park.
it just has a conservation restriction over it, so
Right.
it's kind of a belt and suspenders kind
So it would be,
of protected.
potentially could be purchased by the town, or is it?
No, a conservation restriction is put on so to make sure that it's
It doesn't
permanently
develop.
protected.
Yeah, that's in perpetuity.
My
right?
understanding is,
Perpetuity, yeah.
my understanding is in a trust, is that right?
Yes.
All right. Any comments?
And with that, and
Okay.
unless you have any questions for us,
Thank you.
again, we just wanted to bring you up to date on where we were and what we're trying to accomplish here.
Glad you did.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Good work.
your
Thank you all for
Yeah.
doing
Thanks for all your
this.
hard work. Good night, Dick.
Mr. Kara.
Next up is board and committee, subcommittee recommendations. So this came up a couple of times. And what my thought was is, first of all, we need to get people willing to sign up for committees, and either they're appointed or elected, and to have kind of a stable of characters that are willing to work with the town, both volunteer-wise and as an elected side. One of the things that came up from at least what I've seen in the past, is from the Board of Selectmen, is to have almost liaisons to some of the boards that are there. We've got a lot going on in town right now. We've got potential new town hall, we've got a public safety building, we have the senior building, which is now ours. We have a lot of things in motion, and was wondering, just from the board point of view, what would you think? And again, this is more from a discussion point of view, if liaisons to what I think of the executive committees, which would be probably at this point town hall. I would think it would be the Elder Affairs Trust, the Capital, School, and Advisory, to have either a, maybe not permanent, but a semi-presentable person that goes almost every meeting or every other meeting to see what the boards in town are doing.
So you're thinking
Like
liaison, like
communication.
the liaison.
Yeah, and whether or not it needs to be, a firm liaison, or just someone that's willing to take the time and effort to spend a little more time than just what we do. We do spend a lot of time.
And then would you be looking, as you view the liaison, would report back to this board?
Yeah.
Or essentially be, and also let them know that the liaison would be a connection point?
Connection
between
from
them?
us to them as well,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what boards were you thinking about? Capital Schools Advisory?
Capital Schools Advisory, Town Hall, and probably the Elder Affairs, the Housing Trust.
Well,
I have to say this just because if the expectation is that there's still another meeting added to my schedule right now, I will have to tell you respectfully I cannot do it, and if that requires that I resign the seat, I will do that.
No.
so,
So,
I think, well, a couple things. I want to back into another corner for just a second. Do we have an update on applications for committees? Are we doing okay? So people are submitting,
People are
and
submitting them.
we're finding
past 2
out
days,
who's going to get.
yesterday and Friday we got allotted.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
And
this electronic process has worked real well.
Yes.
You can just
Great.
submit electronically now.
Good.
So-
right. So at some point, I would like to discuss committees a little more holistically. So maybe it's when we meet. Maybe it's the meeting before we do appointments, where we look at, we got 2 people reapplying. We have an open space on this particular open space, meaning somebody is not
Available.
re-upping, and not that doesn't presume that we're going to be reappointing every single person, but at least get a sense of where we're at, what committees, and then use that opportunity to kind of look at what committees are actually active working committees accomplishing something. So for like open space, now we've got the master plan going, we've got the harbor plan, we've got the open space plan, and the town hall. Those are really busy,
Very
active committees, some of which already have selectmen sitting on them. I would think that maybe those are the committees that, in my opinion, just initially we should be focused on adding liaisons to, if we're going to go in that direction. as opposed to just the laundry list of committees. Because we did it before, and it frankly became kind of a, one person would come in and say, I went to this meeting, I went to this meeting, I went to this meeting, and those of us that maybe didn't get to a meeting, would feel badly, and
I can guarantee you I never felt badly.
but it was more like, who went to the BoS committee? That's kind of what it became. I would just like to talk a little more strategically about
I definitely don't want that. You're right. I
what,
want,
like open space.
Yeah.
Like this is probably a committee that maybe somebody should show up and kind of see where it's going and just say, hey, wait a minute. I just learned from the Board of Selectmen that the master plan was discussing population trends. So maybe that conversation should take place in one environment, so we're not. Anyway, that's just my global thought on that.
any other?
If the objective is to remain in contact with the committees, then that is, there are a variety of ways to do that. One, of course, is meeting attendance. Another is to keep a regular and open communication with the, with the chair.
That's right. I mean, so a liaison wouldn't necessarily be go to the meeting. It may just be, what happened last night? What's up? What were the salient points of the meeting that were important for the selectmen to know? And say, okay, fine, 10-minute, 5-minute phone call may be enough to do it, or there may be something more involved, maybe a 20-minute phone call or a 15-minute phone call. So that's really, it's more communication. I don't want to. There's a lot of items, on the plate right now, and I'd like to see that at least we're aware of it, basically.
And having said that, though, I think the other piece of that is recognizing that the committees themselves, especially those in active pursuit of specific objectives, should be showing up on our agenda, on a scheduled basis. Those particularly that are advisory in nature. 3 of them come to mind: advisory, capital budget, and alternative energy. But as specific projects arise, I think there are others that certainly should show up. The Harbor Committee is an example. Open space, they're certainly demonstrating a high degree of vitality, et cetera. So from that perspective, I think it goes both ways. It's not just a matter of larding an additional meeting on any one individual board member's schedule. I mean, Kevin, I know, is on master plan steering, and I also do the long range planning thing. You get the idea. I mean, as chairman, as you know, that takes on its own role, right? That's what
I was going to say. When we discuss committees, assuming that holistic conversation is going to take place, that's a conversation I'd like to have, is to have the committees come to us more often, because as I explained to you, the long range planning group, one of the things I was kind of witchy about from the beginning was to make sure they came and reported to us so I knew what was going on. And then I read in the Mariner that they reported to master plan, which means I was the only selectman that actually never heard that information about data reports, and I had asked for it a few times when we were discussing budget planning. And
I know we can find the chairman.
So I really would like to see, the committees come to us more frequently. I think that's probably something that would benefit all of us. For those of us that might be, one of my friends is on the sewer commission. I talk to him all the time, but that's just because I have that relationship.
Right.
But that information, it's valuable to have here for all of us at the same time, and then the public gets to hear it. So. My thoughts.
So I'm getting a sense maybe a melded, the ones that are really active to come here, maybe X number of meetings in
every couple months
or
whatever.
The ones that are active, and the ones that are less active, maybe phone calls with the chair, or simple once a year or every 6 months, something like that, as an idea to start things.
I think it would be helpful to set up some kind of a schedule, just so it makes it easier for us to manage who's coming and all that. We know we've talked about it. We had an example of that. We've had committees come in. Right. We've had alternative energy come in. So we could set up some kind of a rotating schedule. If you want to, your subcommittee wants to take a crack at it, or if you want, however you want to do that.
Okay. So
I mean, this is really Chris's job, so
managing the
Yeah,
committees
I would say,
after we
I would
after we
say-
populate them.
I would say, if Paul and Chris, when you're meeting, lay out a schedule of some of these meetings to meet with us over the next 6 months, and then run it by the board. Need to make, and we'll look at it, make any comments, and go with that plan as part of what you're saying.
The only one that I would pass back is that the Town Hall Renovation Committee has asked specifically to make sure there's a regular connection.
Right.
Because what they're doing is not only time sensitive, it's super critical. It's a big, big project. So I don't know if you want to have a formal liaison to that or not, or just have regular reports from them.
Well, I think this is one of the things that specific to that I'm certain that I asked about 3 weeks ago. Is that it's time for us to have an update, but I think as a regular report, they would be one that I think that I would think the board would be very interested in, on whether that's monthly or every third meeting, something like that.
Two meetings from now, something like that. Would that be?
But I think at this point we're due for an update anyway. I have to say, from my own perspective, I saw the survey that went out from them as being extraordinarily limiting. I thought, geez, that's very interesting. It was pretty much a binary choice. I thought, I have to wonder what direction that's going in.
Well, that's where it got, but there's more context to it.
Well,
I think it would be better if you had a more comprehensive.
And we wouldn't know that, or we actually don't know that as a board.
Unfortunately, the last couple of meetings they set up were blank dates, and the selectmen added, because of schedule reasons, they added meetings to those that ended up conflicting, so it became problematic. But that's a critical. So I'm going to make sure that Paul and I will talk, but we'll make sure we get.
So maybe
I'll try to go to their meetings only because I don't know if anybody wants to make it a formal thing, but I'll make a point of going to them if they're looking for some kind of selectman representation. Just because I don't have a standing committee, I'm happy to attend. I don't know that they want me at the table because that would require a different action on the part of this board.
Yeah, I don't know that. I think it's just having somebody in the audience to keep.
But I do think. I do
Having
think
them here,
we all need to hear it at the same time.
Well, they were here. They were here fairly recently. I think it's getting. I think I agree with Steve's point. Is a very good one to have them here on a regular rotating basis because of the project and the sensitivity of that project.
So Chris and I will sit down from point of view. It looks like the critical committees that are going on now. Steve, you mentioned the Town Hall Advisory and Capital.
Well, Capital Advisory and Alternative Energy are all advisory committees to town meeting and to the board. And then there's a high level of activity in several others. Harbor comes to mind. There's master planning, open space,
affordable housing.
And there's some seasonality to these committees, right? I mean, capital budget doesn't do much in the summer, and so we got to be a little bit
That's why I
strategic
say
about how
they
we
should
get
sit
people
down and
coming
go
in
over,
here.
see what's practical,
Yeah.
what we currently need for the next 4 or 5 months and schedule. And
Yeah, and I got to say one more time, really Chris is, in the bylaws, this is Chris's job to manage the committees, and I mean, I think we should charge Chris with setting up stuff that makes sense, right? I mean, because we can't keep track of all the activities, and we should just say, Chris, we'd like to see more people.
I think, again, if you think about it from a seasonal standpoint, as we approach annual town meeting, working through budgets, etc., I believe we should have a monthly update from advisory. I mean, I would think advisory would want to be doing that.
Right.
Likewise, I think starting around mid-January, you'd be hearing up until town meeting from Capital on a fairly regular basis. Going into special town meeting, the same thing applies with those two committees. After that, it does become more episodic based upon the activities of the committee.
And I think Chris is in the best position to determine, who needs
Attention
to
when.
present, right?
What we need to know.
Okay.
We actually have a much better communication network now. The phones are working better.
I was going to
the computers work better.
Interdepartmental communications is far
It's very
better
exciting.
now.
I can 4-digit dial the police department now for the first time.
Excellent.
So next up is the
COPS.
Any other comments? So
Exactly.
probably this week, Thursday and Friday, might be an optional buzz. Next one up is the selectmen of dates for selectmen meeting. Were there any that were unusually difficult to make? As far as
Is that an email?
at least for now?
It's in the package.
It's going to be the second and fourth Thursday, Tuesday, right?
Say that
Looks
again?
good.
Second and
And
last.
mostly the second, fourth Tuesdays,
Tuesday.
with a couple of tweaks based on either holidays or
Right,
conferences.
you moved a few days there.
Yeah.
We did the 31st,
That
we're
late
going to have a
August
Halloween
meeting is tough.
costume event for the
Why not?
selectmen.
Maybe
You can all dress as your
really
favorite character
Yeah.
from political history.
I will ask the chairman to consider, especially as you get into some of the dog days of summer, as to whether or not we actually do need the second meeting.
Yeah.
You know,
I love you guys, but meeting with you just to make sure that we've checked it off the calendar when we can be productive in one meeting is probably
and what
a
about
better
in-
example
in
to set.
July?
I'm going to see the Patriots in Mexico City November 14th, so.
Hola,
Bueno.
arriba, la Patriots.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
I'll drink the water. So we could potentially, why don't we see how August
back
goes?
some
That may
vanilla.
be the one that, I believe I'm on vacation that last week, and I'll be doing a college drop-off around that time, too.
Yeah.
Wait, time out. I'm just trying to find the damn
Actually, you're right. I think I have.
SharePoint. Oh, Christ, you want to see a password?
When are you doing the drop-off? August 22nd?
Yeah, it may be early because he's going to be on the football team. Rah, rah.
You want to just cancel that August 22nd meeting? So we have,
Okay,
we have
well,
a,
probably
give ourselves a
cancel
break,
that.
and then if there's some
And if there's some-
emergency,
yeah,
we'll,
something
we'll
that comes up, we can
schedule
always-
something.
So why don't we,
need to
can we
schedule.
cancel that,
Yep.
the August 22nd one?
I'm not going to object to that.
And what about special town meeting? Have we?
I was going to give you dates on that after you set these. But
Okay.
we're looking at probably, in order to keep our good friends on the town hall committee managed, probably the 16th is the tentative date. That's
16th of
of October.
October.
That gives us enough time to, because if we move it too much sooner, it becomes very problematic
Yeah.
to get anything done. And when looking ahead, we've been traditionally doing the first Monday of May or right around that time, or the last Monday of April, depending on the schedule. If we do it then, again, I'm looking way ahead to consider doing a second night's pre-scheduled in June just to do town meeting, because I may need to be a little more time to get the bids back, and depending on what happens in the fall. If things move along all summer well, they get to the fall, it allows enough time to get all the hard numbers so town meeting can really consider a hard number. But I'll know that better.
Should we pick a special town meeting date so we know it?
Monday, October 16th?
I'll bounce on October 16th, but let me confirm some
Yeah.
dates with the schools before I lock that in, so I don't find out where hosts get basketball.
Right, there may be a conflict, and it's always best to...
But that's the date. If anyone, if no one has an objection at the next meeting, you can set that as a special town meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
And we should be able to, with Mary's looming retirement, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, it also gets it done earlier, actually, makes it a little easier. So. And there's no elections, no town election, there's no fall election for us this year. Normally we wouldn't do it then because the clerk is crazed because there's early voting and everything else. But there is no local election in November this year, so we have the month of October clear.
Great.
Good. Okay. So we'll see how November 14th pans out. We may bump it forward or back.
November.
October 16th.
No, November 14th, he was going to be in Mexico City.
Oh.
But as of now, August 22nd is canceled.
You know what? That's right. I'll vote him. I'll vote as proxy.
So
Well, you can do it by...
That will never happen.
So the schedule we
We can
have.
Skype you in.
You
We
can do
Skype you
remote.
in.
I don't know what I can see it now. I go
Hola,
back and
with the
hola.
sombrero.
I can see.
Actually, what we've done in the past is that Tracy, I think, has sent out invitations on these dates that we're agreeing to,
Yeah.
which she
Yeah.
does.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
so I guess you'll send them out,
Yes,
everything
I
except
will.
for August 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to mark it further.
And I think the next one up is the all facilities, or unless, any more comments on the dates?
Nope.
Okay. Next up is all facilities sticker update fees and rules.
So I distributed to you a little earlier today, my apologies for the delay, the child care permit new edition. So it should be in an email.
Yep.
But let me read it to you quickly. So I took what Carol gave me and I kind of broke it out a little bit more.
We haven't gotten this though. have we?
Yeah, it was,
Yes.
I emailed it to you.
Emailed
Got it today.
This afternoon,
So
so,
I'm not getting it. Let me see. Okay, go ahead.
I can make copies of this video. Basically, it's 3 parts, and this is basically based on what we already had. A, the sticker would be valid Monday through Friday for beach parking only. B, requires a signed letter or form provided by the clerk's office certifying local address of the family, name and address of the provider, services which the provider has been contracted, time period of the contractual relationship, valid vehicle registration, and any other information required by the clerk's office. All parties to the agreement must sign the letter or form. And C, the clerk's office will issue a vehicle special permit to the provider.
Specific.
A vehicle-specific permit
Yeah.
to the provider, I'm sorry, which must be displayed at all times when utilizing the beach parking lot. The permit may only be used for the provision of services for the Cohasset family, not for the personal use of the provider. Signs that they just can't head up to the beach with their friends. That's
So
not
is
supposed to
the,
be for us.
is the
Or his friends.
likely permit going to look different
Yes.
than the other one?
It would be something like Carol talked about, it'd be like a piece of paper with a
Piece of
raised
paper.
gold seal, and so it makes it photocopy challenged, and there's a raised.
That's what we saw last.
Yeah. And there's only, I think she said like 20 or 30 of them that she's issued in the past.
And it will have the registration prominently placed.
We can talk about the, I mean, I didn't want, we can tweak the language on this if the
Right.
board wants to, but this allows for us to issue these.
It-
Good enough.
If there's an abuse of privilege with this, what recourse does,
We can pull a sticker.
yeah, anything else?
We can ticket them.
Jail time?
No, that's what I'm asking.
You get a ticket.
Do you-
and you
by
can
the way,
pull
do
their
you-
permit.
Public
Test and
vlogging.
see if anybody's watching the meeting.
The
My,
stocks.
my
The phone's
daughter,
not ringing.
my daughter got a parking ticket for parking along Black Rock Beach, and never responded. God bless her. And I think it went to $50. It was a $25 ticket,
Yeah,
and then,
that's
but
exactly
she
right.
got- which is fine. I'm happy. You know, it was a great lesson. She paid it.
You probably paid it. But that's-
No, I did not.
Whoa,
I did not.
As a dad.
I will not. Are you kidding me? It was my car. But my point in this is that if it's not enforceable and or we're not going to enforce it, then I'd rather not waste the time. The purpose for doing this was recognizing that there are people in town who have regular and steady child care that carries through the summer, and access to the beach is critical. However, there had to be a process that prevented what we suspected was an abuse, and that was the reselling of these passes, essentially on social media.
So I was going to work with Carol to create some kind of a quick form that people can sign.
Okay.
I mean, we don't want to be, Big Brother here. By the same token,
No.
we don't want people to be selling them.
That's all. We just don't want
It's
abuse.
the point is to be responsible with it.
Right.
That's all.
Can I?
Sure.
I'm really not in favor of this. I'm concerned about us. We have a permitting process that's for residents. For now, we're picking out a segment of the population that aren't residents, even though it's tangentially involves private citizens, residents, and using our, sticker of government resources in order to help, help out nannies essentially, or caregivers or whatever. I don't think is an appropriate use for government resources, especially in the category we're talking about. Two things concern me. One is, if you can afford a nanny, I assume you're relatively affluent in this relatively affluent town, and for us to be using government resources to help affluent and wealthy people is something I think that the general population will find offensive, and I've gotten a good amount of input from citizens, in fact, that find it offensive, and and I do as well. So I'm concerned about doing that. I don't think it's appropriate. I also think that if we were ever to do anything like this, I wouldn't pick out a category. One thing on the category is they've never come to us. This is something we've sort of thought up in whole cloth, and I think we have better things to do on this board than to identify groups that haven't approached us to get benefits, especially since they're, the particular groups that are involved don't seem to be, completely needy. So those things concern me, and I don't think that I wouldn't be in favor of voting and approving this.
So a couple things. I mean, this has been around for a very long time. So it wasn't, I think there was a lot of information out there that we were just creating something out of whole cloth last week or 2 weeks ago, when this is something that has been in place for a very long time. And I'm kind of agnostic about it, except I will say I don't think we're really helping out the families that live in town. We're not really it's not helping out the nanny. It's helping out the residents of Cohasset who have childcare, people that come in their own car. And as somebody that has worked since I was 13 years old, I had to work when my kids were little, and I often had, whether they were high school kids or whether they were grandparents or whatever, coming and taking my kids to the beach during the day. So I don't see it as an affluent thing. I think in today's world, most families have two parents working, and I think it's not unreasonable that they would want grandma or whoever it is to it's not like a live-in nanny that they're able to buy a third car for or whatever. So, so I guess my 2 points are really that I don't think it's an affluent thing, and I think it's something that we had a practice of. So I think we're actually, if we choose not to do this, we are, taking back something that has been available to people that live in this town for a long time.
Steve?
I want to emphasize a couple of points. My former wife and I raised 3 children in the same neighborhood that you live in, Kevin. We worked our asses off. We had a nanny. God knows we weren't rich. We mowed our own lawn. We painted our own walls. We stripped our own wallpaper. We didn't have contractors showing up every other day. It isn't. And if I hear one more thing about a class designation, about the proper use of government resources, I'm going to scream. We did everything we could to put enough money in the bank to send them away to college. That isn't rich or poor. We had a wonderful girl that came to the house, gave her love to my children, and helped to raise them. And you know what? She didn't have a beach pass. Because we didn't even know it existed at the time in this town. Gosh, I wish I had. It would have been nice. We couldn't give her one of our cars. We only had 2. Both of us were going in opposite directions to work. This is craziness. You hit it right on the head. This is a benefit for the children of the town. That's all it is. From that perspective, I think you've wrapped a reasonable construction around it where there was none previously. I think there's been much made of this, whether it's a political cartoon in the local paper or chatter. If you want to just stand in the way and bar the children of Cohasset access to the beach during a weekday because their parents are working, you know what? I'll let you have that duty. I don't want it.
Mr. Chief?
I have nothing to say.
No? Yep.
Yeah, I still think that what we're doing here is picking out a segment of the population that some, maybe all of us on the board can relate to personally, and we're pushing government resources their way. I think it's highly inappropriate, and I think it would be. I think it's going to make us kind of a laughing stock in the town, as well as it's not appropriate for us to do that as a board. I wouldn't. The only group I might consider on this is, and I wouldn't want to vote for any other group before I voted to have beach tickets for town employees. Now that would make, there is some rationale to that, because town employees, that is in the interest of the general community as a whole, they are town employees, and I can see a rationale there that I'd be more favorable to. But to pick out a segment of the population based on our own personal experience and who we may have feelings for or whatever is not an appropriate use of our governmental power, and directing it to a narrow group is inappropriate, and I won't be voting for it.
Thank you for your opinion on that. I disagree with it wholeheartedly. And when I brought up the suggestion last week, our last meeting, with respect to allowing these passes to be distributed to town employees as a fringe benefit, it was one of the items that you suggested that you're going to look into with respect to this. Is that something you've covered?
It's definitely something I think it's definitely interesting. You also raised, I think, a linked point is that it's a benefit. And in our union relationships, I think it would be something that we might want to use as a
fair enough,
good sweetener. But I do think it's a very valid point. I think it's a great one. I'd like to include it in the next round of conversations we have with the unions.
So I just want to say that I'm definitely in favor of this. This is something that's been going on for years. As again, a person who had two parents working, and we had actually one car at one point. It was very nice to have a babysitter come in, and if you can have someone, we have no grandparents, so we had no one nearby to help us with that, but certainly having someone with a weekly pass to get to the beach would certainly have been a wonderful addition. They're still going to pay for it. It's not like we're squandering public resources. They're paying for the stickers, so it's a matter of the use of the beach. It's something I think that is reasonable. I've gotten phone calls from the opposite side saying we have two parents that are working, and we do have a need for someone to be able to bring the kids to the beach that are still not old enough to be either in school, or if they are in school in the summer and they're out and they need to go to the beach. It's a great exercise for the kids, and it's a great location. It's safe, and it's a simple thing. I think they're paying for the sticker, so I don't have a problem.
Just a question on the payment. Is it the same as the other stickers?
Yeah.
Which is $50 each.
So there's a motion to approve the child care provider permits.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
Passes 4-1. Next up is fiscal update. Town manager. Chris, you're on.
I will just give I have to give you all of the forms, which I still have yet to do, but the most recent materials I've already drafted. I'll give you the quick synopsis. We're on target. Excise tax revenue has been up a little bit, which has been nice. Last year was flat. Motor vehicle excise permits and fees are down, but last year they spiked for a variety of reasons, mostly involving some accelerated construction at Toll Brothers and Cook Estates. So we're still on target at the end of the year, I think, on a positive note. We are going to be presenting a series of budget updates to you next week. We have to go through budget transfers. This is not supplemental appropriations. The Selectmen and Advisory Committees both approve those at the end of the year, so we'll probably start those next regular board meeting. Maybe we can wrap those up at the beginning of July if we have to. But there's going to have to be some just money moved around amongst some departments. The rules have shifted, so it's a lot easier to do than in the past. Cunningham Bridge. Public meeting, June 12th, 7 p.m. Wilcott Commons. That's the official date for the meeting.
What's the date again?
June 12th, 2 weeks from yesterday. Wilcott Commons, 7 p.m. at Cohasset Senior Center. The state will be there. There'll be a little PowerPoint. There'll be a review of the project plans and schedule. And we'll also shortly be posting materials on the town website. Brian was kind of deluged with the stuff, and it's not, number one, some of it is not appropriate to place. We shouldn't be posting all the construction drawings, all the details necessarily online for some of this, but he'll have the general stuff, the overviews and all will be posted shortly, so he has got some materials from the state. So that's if you want.
7 p.m.?
7 p.m.
7 p.m. Monday. Okay.
If I can jump out of order, the private ways next steps. So the town law bylaw amendment, which was passed, I think unanimously at town meeting, has been submitted to the Attorney General for review. That's how the process works. We expect the results, we expect them to sign off in the next 60 days. They have been deluged with everyone's bylaws, so we usually hear sometime in August. So, but that's been submitted, and so it won't go into effect until the Attorney General signed off.
We already heard back on one of them.
Because we accelerated that quickly. We sent that out the day after town meeting. If we did it with all the others, the Attorney General would reject it. So that was a time sensitive one that had to go into effect on July 1st.
I see.
Or we wouldn't have. That was with the revolving funds.
Yes, yes, yes.
So we haven't heard back, we're waiting to hear
Yeah,
back.
we're waiting to hear back. So they've gotten all the rest of them.
In the meantime, are we, because we do hear from citizens that are concerned, are we working with those and communicating with those citizens
Yes.
that are...
So,
Yeah, get rid of
so
that.
yes, and here we go with some more updates. So
Good.
if you remember, a couple months ago, Brian and I sat down and we talked about a 5-year roadway plan and a construction set of construction guidelines and maintenance guidelines. We're going to be representing those to you shortly, probably the end of June or early July, for adoption. And we're also going to be looking at the right now, all of the currently available funding is dedicated primarily to the Jerusalem Road project that it was all dug up by the gas mains, and also we have some fixes to do downtown as a result of the gas main work last year.
When's that going to get done, June?
The downtown work, I'm not entirely sure.
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem, I have to double check the date. We're in a queue. We're part of a consortium bid, and we do a comparatively small amount of road work. I mean, it's a good price, but we have to slot in when they make it available to us. I have to double check with Brian the date.
Isn't the top coating after utility work at the cost of the utility?
One of the things that we're trying to do more is coordinate with the utilities so that our repaving coincides with their work, so that when the work gets done, it's going to get fully repaved, and then the road locks for 5 to 10 years. That way, they've done the patchwork, they've done some of that. Often they won't pave a road curb to curb. Jerusalem Road was scheduled to be redone anyway. And that just made it worse, obviously, the work the National Grid did.
It's really bad right now.
Yeah, we know. But they will not normally pay for a curb-to-curb replacement. We did very aggressively negotiate with them downtown for curb-to-curb replacement because of the sensitivity of the area. But they wouldn't agree to do that all over town.
I drive down Pond Street, and the gas company tore up Pond Street quite literally 3.5 months after we paved it curb to curb. All right, and now it's potholes all over the place, and I believe that this town merits better than that.
We have been working closely with National Grid trying to get them to fix their past ways. And I think we've made some progress, but we have not made perfect progress.
Okay.
As FY17 ends and we wrap, we know what we're going to close with. We'll have an idea if we have any extra funds. So part of the conversation with the 5-year road plan was also setting up a funding mechanism for this betterment revolving fund potentially that we might want to talk about setting up. So we'll schedule something again probably for later in June or early July to hammer some of that out and talk about a process and what kind of funding might be available.
It seems to me on the private way policy, the pieces that were left open while it was passed was funding and classification mechanisms. Right? I think unfortunately there's at least one group of people who seem to think that there's every likelihood of being adopted as a public way, and thereby having their funding covered. And frankly, I don't believe that was the goal of the private way policy at the outset.
To give a bit, in the rare circumstance, and I will use that word because I think it's going to be rare, where a road is likely to become a public way, and again, there's certain criteria that were built in the policy for that. The town has the option of putting more money in. For the vast majority of other roads, there'll either be no contribution or
Partial.
or contribution that's based on the town could make temporary repairs. So the town could put in what the equivalent of a temporary repair to a full repair and have the neighbors pay the rest. That may make a lot more logical sense than the town throwing money in, going in, paving some potholes, and then having the rest of the road come apart. That would be computed on a road-by-road basis based on what we would do. That's the more likely funding. And the town doesn't even have to do that if the selectmen don't, either if the money's not available or it's just not town policy.
Well, I think that was the basis for talking about the potential of a funding mechanism, was that it would allow a resource for partial funding, which otherwise could be classified as temporary repairs.
I've actually had a private road that's going to stay a private road. I don't think they have any interest I don't think they can even become a public road, to be honest. But and they were interested in the whole betterment concept as a way to finance it. They actually have a pre-existing homeowners association and the whole 9 yards, so they're actually a perfect candidate.
Life is good.
So I said once the bylaw is fully in place, we'll talk more about it. So I did have some interest in people. They were. I mean, they'd love town funding if there was any. I didn't think that was very likely, and I told them so. But
I mean, that'd be the simplest process. Is you've got a homeowners association, the neighborhood is involved, the neighborhood is all on board, and they want a betterment, and the town will say, all right, well, we'll set up the funding process and make it easier to do it that way, as opposed to, I think we're very limited on what we have for road funds, both from the state and locally, and from us. We'll get maybe 200,000 from the state. On a good year, we might get 250, maybe 300, but that's rare. Usually it's 200,000. We throw in another 400,000, and that's to do Jerusalem Road, and the corner of Sawyer Street is now dug up because there was a gas main leak. So there's all sorts of potholes on Pond Street, which are higher, probably up on the list. And there's a lot of other public roads that are up higher on the list.
So that's you'll be getting more updates, but that's where we are at the moment on that process.
So one of the questions specifically with Cedar Acres, who are anxious to resolve one way or another their situation. At the very least, have they been told what their next steps are or should be? And does that include a petition?
I have been in general conversation with them. I think it would be better from my perspective if the board made some decisions on how it wants to proceed. I think give them much more clear direction as to how to come in front of the board and talk about. So again, it'll be something we should schedule at a future meeting in conjunction with the whole 5-year road, because it's not just this one particular. I mean, it's important, but it's not that one particular road. It's getting the whole policy locked in place and then moving forward.
So what's our timeline roughly? Would you want to hear back from the state on that, and then?
Well, I think I don't have to wait for the state to get you more information. So again, I'm going to speak with Brian and get you the updated road plan, and we talked about setting up a bonding authorization, and the recommendation, or one of the recommendations that came out was go big. So we're going to come back with an update and also an updated that road maintenance plan, which requires utilities and others to put up bonds and do things that they don't have to do right now, and that would give us a little more teeth and a little more leverage to go fighting with National Grid and any other utilities.
We would do this with a view to make sure we didn't miss the fall cycle here.
Yeah. No. The goal is to try to get stuff done in this paving cycle.
In the next 6 to 7 weeks, so that I wouldn't want to see some of these roads that have really been asking us every year for several years. I wouldn't want them to miss another cycle.
There's also
due to lack of our policy. Yeah, right?
Well, there's also just a reality of funding. We only have so much. I mean, overall we're in pretty good shape. There are almost certainly examples where things could be better.
So Jerusalem is the number one priority? Yeah, because we're going to get 1,000 bicycles on that June 25th.
I don't know if it'll be November 25th, but I will find out what the schedule is. So I know it's important. I know Brian's pushed hard to get it as early as possible. So.
Because I ride that road every day. It's really bad.
It's bad in your car.
It's bad on a bike.
We're a bigger town. We have more roadway paving per year, so we get higher up on the queue from a point of view of getting. Other communities, it's I forget if it's Plymouth County or Norfolk County, or MAPC. I think it's an MAPC consortium bid, so it's a big group. Good price. Yeah. Now we can always independently go out for a contract too, but there are not a lot of road paving companies around, so we don't have the capability to do it ourselves. Mm-hmm. We can do pothole filling better than we could, because we can actually have a hot box now. We keep asphalt hot, which allows us to do better patching, so that's good. But that's it's patching. It's patching. It's not paving. Okay, the finance director. So, as I think everyone is aware, and I will make everybody aware if you're not, Mary Gallagher will be retiring later this calendar year, not fiscal year. So she's retiring later this calendar year after a very long and accomplished career with us and other municipalities. What we've been working on all spring is her documenting her workflow, her timelines, her process, kind of downloading Mary Gallagher into some sheets and spreadsheets. And there's things that she just does automatically that are just important to lay out. And also,
what we need to do to train someone to come in. I mean, if they have, whether they have municipal experience or not, there's some things that we may do differently here than another town does, which is fine. And there are some just general state things. If someone comes in from the private sector, there's a different kind of set of rules. So one of the things I've made a priority of the last number of months is to talk with other communities and see programs about finance directors, hiring finance directors. There is a big retirement wave coming. It's already hit us, actually. So over the next 10 years, lots of people in the public sector in particular, private sector too, I'm sure everyone's seeing that, are leaving, and there's not a lot of people in the wings to fill a lot of these spots. A lot of communities much bigger than us have had some real struggles to find finance directors and accountants. I've been working this now for months to try to make sure that we're plugged into the right places. Mary has been spreading the gospel every meeting she goes to. I've talked to our auditor and our auditing firm about people that they've identified out there as promising people. So I think we're going to have a good wide recruitment push. But let me talk about the position. So there's really two positions. The finance director is not standalone, as I talked about in town meeting. It's going to be combined either with the town accountant or the treasurer collector. And I'm expecting, I think the best answer, having had a lot of conversations that I have, Lisa sitting here in the back of the room tonight, she and I have been talking about this a lot. We're going to, my preference and my plan is to recruit, I have two parallel tracks for a town accountant and for a finance director town accountant, because we're going to have, I believe, I'd like to have an internal candidate. There's an internal candidate interest in our treasurer collector in becoming the finance director. You don't have to be the town accountant. So if we find the right person, and she understands that, while she'd be a serious candidate, we're going to open it up to people from the outside too. So if there's someone who comes aboard who has great accounting skills and broader experience doing budgeting and projections and public and work with public boards and committees, that they'll be seriously considered as well. So, but I think there's folks out there who might just want to be the town accountant and be a behind-the-scenes person. The finance director needs to be a lot more forward-facing, to appear in front of the boards, to do reports. Paul did some great work on that budget document that we did this year, and I think you've seen her regular report to the board. So I think that she's definitely a strong candidate to be the finance director, in addition to being the town treasurer collector.
I see those two roles as being very different. Whereas the town accountant is typically a tactically oriented, functional ciphering, and I mean that as a positive. I see a finance director as someone who takes on a more strategic role and often is very different than that person that would occupy the accounting function.
Yeah, and if you're looking at just the job specs, I would agree. Our current treasurer will have to spend most of her career in the private sector doing finance work. So she comes with a different set of background, and now is fully versed in the town and public side. So maybe a traditional treasurer collector might not be the right person. I think Paul.
No. I'm not even talking about the candidates. I'm actually talking about the position itself. The finance director. If I said treasurer collector, then I misspoke. I was talking about finance director and a town accountant.
Oh.
And I was under the impression that you were actually seeking to separate those roles.
We did at town meeting.
The roles have technically always been separate, but there was one section of the bylaws where they're combined. Right. There was one where they're separate. The town manager director are separate, but there was another one they're combined. So they are now disconnected. Yeah. I don't know that we need to hire. I don't think we're prepared to hire a full-time finance director. I don't think the town needs that role. Besides, we're not budgeted for it anyway. So what a lot of communities do, you wear kind of two hats doing it. You play a role in the finance department. Again, you could be the town accountant. You could be the assessor technically. You could be an assistant town manager. You could be the town manager, finance director of a small town, or you could be the treasurer collector. That's the rules of the position require that. So I'm just saying that there's. I don't think we have a need for a full. We don't have a 40-hour-a-week finance director job at this point. I don't think, not for strategic work. We do have a role for it. I think we need to do more of it. But I don't think it has to be, and it doesn't have to be linked to the account. I think that is a very valid point. It doesn't have to be. So I will see what's out there. I mean, I've actually gotten a lot of connections recently on LinkedIn from folks in other communities who are clearly aware that this is looming, and so they're sizing this up a little bit.
Do we have job descriptions for these?
Yeah, we've been working on that too. So what I want to do...
So can we see those?
Yes, we're going to share those with you. And it's interesting that the bylaws have a kind of a bifurcated... The town accountant includes the advisory committee, and the finance director includes the selectmen. So just the way it's set up. So I'm going to work. The chair of the advisory committee is currently out of the country, so when she's back or she's on vacation, I'm going to talk to her a little bit more about how to engage the advisory committee in the accountant search process. And I'm also going to obviously engage with all of you. We'll share job descriptions and recruitment strategies. If anyone has any thoughts, happy to listen. And really, if you have any place you think we should search.
I really do think it's a key hire going forward. And things have really changed a lot in town, and Mary's done a great job of getting us there. But at this point, I think for us, it's going to be a very, very important hire.
I agree. I think the financial backbone, when it's going really well, you don't really see it. I mean, you see a lot of pieces of it that work really well, but it's foundational for everything else you do.
And we're looking at projects going forward, like replacing SoftWrite with Munis, which is more of a project management. It's got much more functionality. It's going to, I think finding somebody who's actually used Munis or implemented Munis would be really valuable to the town. Munis is going to give us some of this project management. It's more of an IT backbone than what we've got now. So, for that reason alone, I'd love to see somebody who's got that kind of a background.
So,
I just want to reinforce that because I think that a finance director with deep skills like that strategic skills provides an important strategic thinking and planning component in the town that does nothing but benefit us. We have huge project, a number of serious things going on in terms of long-range planning, master planning, and town hall financing. But just a finance director who can really make a strategic contribution to the town, because I think this town is at that point where we need it and will greatly benefit from it. Mm-hmm. So I do want to see that myself filled with someone with that kind of a strong strategic skills and background. What I like to see is that the process that we went through with the police chief hire was fine by me. I would ideally, I don't know whether we could do it or not, but just to go through the same process where we have an independent sort of a firm do whatever search that you do. Hopefully there are some that do that. Search for the finance directors and then do the 360-degree blind analysis like you did and so forth. I myself would like to see that, and I would welcome any town employee to be part of it like it was last time. And then pick a candidate that way. I just think this position we don't want to pass up. We owe it to the town and our own future to get the most thorough and professional and strategic approach to this that we can. So that's what my thinking is on this.
What I'm getting from the conversation is that you're pretty clear on a set of needs, right? You're not sure exactly how it can be filled. Is that fair?
I think I want to keep open options. Because I'm not recommending, nor do I think we need a full-time finance director, 40-hour-a-week position. And the law requires it to be coupled with only a certain, if it's going to be a dual position, which it has been here, it can only be linked to a couple of other positions. That's just the way the law works. And it most logically works that way anyway. It's often linked to a town accountant. It doesn't have to be linked to a town accountant. But I agree with your points, Kevin. I think having a strong financial team is critical. I think it's one of the things that, I know that's one of the things that got us over the hurdle with Moody's. The management structure of the management team matters. And that came up. We had a call today. We had a ratings call. Mary and myself.
S&P.
Yes, with S&P. Mary,
Yeah, not Moody's.
I'm sorry.
We never brought Moody's in.
Moody's was my prior community. I apologize. And I did just see them at the conference I was at. Mary, Paul, and myself, our financial advisor, and the S&P analyst were on the phone. And we were up to call in 25 minutes. We have a strong credit, but he kept stressing the management. We talked about things, and we checked all the boxes. It's critically important to me to have that, or as one of the speakers I saw at the conference I was at said, you want the right people on the bus with you.
Right.
So exactly, I want the right people on the bus.
Look, we're looking at, as we talked about earlier tonight, we've got a capital project underway that has some bumps in it. We've got a future potential capital project with respect to town hall. And depending upon how that's structured, I mean, from a finance director can make a great contribution in that by simply laying it out, looking at our bonding capabilities, our cash flow projections, and advising, look, here's your budget parameter for that, because if you go over that, then you're constricting future projects, right? That's the type of thinking that a finance director can assist with. And frankly, I believe that you need that capability above all, and I don't mean to diminish the accounting piece of it. It's critical. But from our standpoint, I would think that the town accountant position is probably more fillable than the finance director. And the possibility, I appreciate you keeping your mind open, the possibility that you find them melded into both is a little bit harder to understand in these days.
That's why I want to see what's out there. So,
And here's a concrete example. Look at how much John has accelerated the back office at the high school. I mean, John is he's such an experienced guy. He's got the big picture. He's really made a huge impact in the last year, and that's the kind of hire I'd like to see us do on this side. I mean, there's a guy that steps right in with a lot of experience and really, really makes an impact. Unfortunately, he's retired.
But he may know someone who's.
Yes, he does. And John's a good person to talk to.
And I believe me, that I'm open to talking to everybody and shaking every tree. In my prior community, I was very fortunate to have two controllers, both who came out of the private sector. There was a little bit of a learning curve, but they brought a different kind of approach, which I thought was very useful. And I had the luxury of having a deputy controller who was very well versed in public side or government side, I should say, accounting. I would really like to have a CPA. I mean, I think Mary's been fabulous, but she has tremendous experience. If I can find that, she has a lot of training anyway. If I can find a CPA, I think I'll be.
Are there professional consulting search firms that you can use? I think it would be.
There's not as many
Public
for finance director as you think.
Public finance.
But yes, there are some out there. So I'm happy to take a look and see what kind of resources there are.
So, coming into this job, you could bring a private sector guy into this job, no problem at all, and they'll pick it up right away. The big issue is the localized accounting rules for the state of Massachusetts, which are very, very different from any other state, right? But, I think a private sector person can make the transition into this kind of a job very, very easily if they had a town accountant who was there to back them up. And technically, a finance director is not doing ledger entries. A finance director is doing, like Steve said, the big picture job. And the town accountant is, managing the general ledger, managing the work floor, managing the invoices, making sure the reports go out. It's a totally different function. And I think we're ready for a big picture person here. I just think, all these committees need support. I mean, think about long-range planning. We've got private citizens doing these finance functions, without getting paid, and they get burned out. I mean, it's just, it'd be really beneficial for us to have a finance director who could support a lot of the work that we're asking the committees to do.
And the other thing is that person owns, as a full-time employee, owns and has the continuity throughout the various functions and committees and stuff in town in one professional person.
Right.
As opposed to there being, we've already talked, for example, tonight about open space is going to be doing a different kind of population analysis and study than is going to, perhaps we've seen with long-range planning. A strategic, strong financial person can coordinate that kind of stuff in the financial area. It's just our town is ready for that. I mean, we're ready for it. We've got considerable growth going on, and
It'd be nice for the finance director to keep the 5-year forecast model, right?
Yeah.
And be the keeper of that information. So, I mean, right now, that information's split between 4 or 5 people in town who keep it on their own personal,
Exactly.
Laptop,
PCs, right?
and they also become a strategic thinker for the town manager, which,
Right.
he can handle all,
Absolutely.
can handle a high level strategic finance person that has skills that he not expected to have, but that's how you expand and grow Cohasset to its fullest potential. We gotta get, professional, the best people we can, and go out and aggressively get them. That's how you build an organization, and we should do that in this town.
So we're starting. We've started really. I just wanted to give you a quick conversation about where we are and where we'll be going. So we'll be talking about this fairly regularly over the next couple of months.
Okay.
Great.
Excellent.
And that's going to be part of, I mean, when we do goals and objectives for
We should include
Chris,
this.
that's
For Chris,
included,
absolutely.
right?
Well, the goal is to have someone on board for a transition period with Mary. So
Great.
Yeah. One thing, and I know it's been said already, but I really want to see a job description of exactly what this is, so that's the first,
But
because that's going to dictate.
Yeah.
I hate to say job description, but we want to see that so that we're all in agreement
Scope
on
of work.
what the level
The
is
job
that we're looking for,
responsibilities.
and then that's the starting point. We need to see that first, but we can put that in our goals and objectives, I think.
Okay, and just so you're aware, on a parallel track, not here, but just as part of my regular update, I met with Clark Brewer and I met with the MAPC on Friday, and we talked about the planner function. So we had a really good meeting. We'll see where it goes. So.
Not to be too mouthy, but I really think that this town is ready for a full-time planner.
Yep.
The long-range planning committee, master plan needs, this
Yep.
town is at the level, and we can afford, and also too, a master planner can work with like the open space that we just saw, that's only one example, and can do all of that fund applications, and that's what they're designed to do. A master planner will more than pay for herself over every year just by the grants and applications that she brings in, so I'm in favor of a full-time, high-quality master planner, and this town, can really flourish under this kind of stuff. We need it.
That is part of the conversation we had. So this wasn't about them doing consulting for us, unless we needed them on a limited basis for an interim. It was about staffing the position.
That's right. Particularly in this position, your planner with all the stuff going on in town has in a single person have the ownership and knowledge of all the various stuff that's going on, and they're coordinated, which is your part of your charter responsibilities. But having that key person in there takes that off of you, and it gets it done really well. It's nothing but win-win. A town planner will more than pay for itself just with the grants and the coordination and the inefficiencies that we get away from.
And there's also that coordination piece between, permits and inspections, Concom. I'd be hard pressed to see how we could borrow somebody from MAPC and make it work.
Well, wasn't the model we were talking about, really.
Yeah.
It was more of a partnership. And again, we'll see how it evolves. Clark was part of the conversation. We had some very good questions.
The problem is those are temporary people, and it's essentially renting a brain who may be there, not there next year, as opposed to a full-time person who has ownership on the town. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of struck by, I'm kind of struck a little bit by the resistance. I don't know why you wouldn't consider.
No. I don't. Please don't mistake my.
Okay.
I'm not resisting. We're looking at multiple options.
Yep.
That was just the most recent one. So I'm just letting you know that was. I don't want you. I don't want to give you the impression that is the path.
Okay.
No,
Folks,
I know the
a
vision that
path.
I have, and maybe others do as well, is we want to see a strong town team, management team. You're very strong. You're a great town manager. We want to see strong managers around you. That planner would be one of them. A strategic financial person would be another. I mean, that's I think what we need.
So I didn't want to go too off track, but that was just my part of. It wasn't a bulleted point, but it was just a parallel conversation. So, any questions of me while you got me?
No. Good luck.
Okay. So next up are the minutes of 1/2017. A motion to approve the minutes of 5/1/17.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next up is the minutes of 5/9/17. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of 5/9/17?
Second.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
And finally, the minutes of 5/16/2017. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Topics not reasonably anticipated by the chairman, 48 hours in advance. The only thing is the baseball team won on Sunday, so they're in the playoffs. We don't know.
What was that unanticipated?
I was 100%.
Yeah, we didn't do
That doesn't qualify.
I called really good.
We got you there.
Did anybody play particularly well?
They all played well.
Schubert?
They all played well. It was a fantastic
Pitch that
game.
game?
So it means that they're in the playoffs. So Thursday or Friday they'll be.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to the baseball team, if I can take just a moment, and please extend the board's thanks and appreciation to Vinny Fontaine for his incredible amount of work that he's taken on to really do a wonderful job of organizing the Memorial Day observances, and likewise, I personally like to recognize the American Legion and all of their work with it. Wiggy's memory lives on. The field of honor is just, it grows every year. It's stunning to look at. That's it.
Yeah, the whole harbor it's amazing.
And I'd just like to say, I thought the chairman gave one of the best speeches I've ever heard a selectman give in a public appearance. It was really a great speech.
Congratulations.
Very good.
You did a very good speech. Excellent.
Yes.
Both days.
It really was.
Yeah, very inspiring. I got to talk to my neighbor, One of us, Diane.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Any other topics?
June 8th is the next meeting. That'll be goals and objectives. Before, since you're sitting, is there anything you want the board to know going in?
Just that if you want to forward me your ideas and thoughts and things, that I can summarize them and group them so that I can have something to present to you, so it'll make it just go faster.
Do you
So
have a form that you can send to them
Goals
like you
and
did last
objectives.
time?
No.
did you send us prompts?
Yeah.
I think you
Yeah.
sent
I
us
did
a
send you
prompt
prompts.
last year.
Yeah.
there's
That would be
prompts, and
helpful.
I think send out last year's,
They're up on the OneDrive.
and then
It is
the
June
prompts.
8th.
Yeah, I'll do that.
We do it one night on all four. So if you,
We will.
okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
But
Yeah,
the last
okay.
couple of years, at least, I think 15,
Yes.
16, and 17 are all on the OneDrive.
okay, good.
So
Any other business? As for move to adjourn,
So
So
moved.
moved.
is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry
Good night,
it's so late,
ladies and
guys.
gentlemen.
all right. God bless.
Trying to get a little quicker.
Yes.